Nahir Galaza and Fernando Pastorizo. After getting in a fight just before Christmas in 2017 and spending a few days apart, 19-year-old Nahir Galaza called up her boyfriend Fernando Pastorizo and asked him to meet up with her that evening in the Argentine city of Gualeguaychú. He came and picked her up on his motorbike, unaware that she was carrying a service pistol belonging to her father, who's a policeman. Right after Galaza got on the bike and they started driving, she shot Pastorizo before getting in front of him and firing another bullet. Galaza didn't call 911 or tell anyone what happened. Instead, she left Pastorizo to die, and he succumbed to his injuries in an ambulance after being discovered by a nearby resident. Police soon charged the young woman with her boyfriend's murder. She argued in court that she was a victim of domestic violence and that Pastorizo had beaten her during their relationship. Galaza also claimed that she didn't seek help after shooting him because, in her words, being injured does not mean that you're going to die. She said she was shocked to learn from Pastorizo's mother that he had died and that the possibility hadn't even crossed her mind. The young woman changed her story numerous times between her arrest and trial as the evidence continued to stack up against her. Galaza's family hired a PR expert to try framing her in a more favorable light to the media, but it did nothing to help her in court. She was found guilty of Pastorizo's murder and received a life sentence. 7. Loren and Jolie Callan. 18-year-old Jolie Callan had broken up with her boyfriend Loren months earlier when he contacted her in August 2015 and persuaded her to go on a hike together as friends in eastern Alabama. By then, Callan had moved on from the relationship and had even found a new partner, but she nevertheless agreed to go to the outing. As Bunner documented their journey on Instagram, Callan had no idea that he was knowingly capturing images of what would turn out to be her last moments alive. One photo shows the young woman with her dog Kiba in her lap, while another shows her holding Kiba while hiking in Cheaha State Park. The last photo of Callan, taken from behind, shows her standing on the edge of a steep lookout. It was around this moment that Bunner shot her in the back of the head, causing her to collapse. He then turned her over onto her back and shot her between the eyes before pushing her off the 40-foot cliff. He then left her body there and headed home. While driving, Bunner dialed 911 and reported that he'd just murdered his ex-girlfriend. He pulled over to the side of the road and waited for police to arrive. Despite admitting he'd killed Callan, Bunner pleaded not guilty in court, claiming that the pair had made a suicide pact and that he'd been too scared to follow through with his end of the deal after she was dead. But there were no signs of Callan being depressed in the time leading up to her murder, and it was clear that she had plans for a future when her life was abruptly taken from her. Bunner was initially granted youthful offender status despite being over 18 years old due to his Asperger's syndrome. But it was ultimately revoked, and he was tried as an adult. He pleaded guilty to murder and was sentenced to 52 years in prison. 6. Erin Caffey and Charlie Wilkinson. From the moment she met her 18-year-old boyfriend, Charlie Wilkinson, in 2007, 16-year-old Erin Caffey was head over heels for him. Their relationship quickly got serious, and within months, Wilkinson had given Caffey a promise ring and told her he wanted to marry her. Erin's parents disapproved of their daughter's relationship with the young man. Her father, Terry Caffey, would later say that there were things about Wilkinson that just didn't sit right with him. They made their daughter break up with him in early 2008. It wasn't long before Caffey started plotting to kill her family because she saw it as the only way for her and Wilkinson to be together. The couple drove to the house one night with their friend Charles Wade and his girlfriend. Before he and Wade went inside, Wilkinson warned Caffey that he'd have to kill her 13 and 8-year-old brothers so that they couldn't act as witnesses. She allegedly said that she didn't care and waited in the car with Wade's girlfriend while the two men took turns shooting the Caffeys and attacking them with a sword. Once they thought the family was dead and finished ransacking the house of valuables, Wade and Wilkinson doused the interior in lighter fluid and lit the home on fire. Unbeknownst to them, Terry Caffey had survived the gruesome attack and found the strength to crawl to her neighbors. He was rushed to the hospital and was able to speak with detectives after undergoing the emergency surgery. Police found Erin with Wilkinson at the trailer he lived in and soon tracked down the other two suspects, who quickly began talking after their stories fell apart. Wilkinson and Wade received life sentences after Terry Caffey urged the court not to give them the death penalty. Erin was sentenced to life, but will become eligible for parole after serving 40 years. Terry Caffey's faith has influenced him to forgive the men who slaughtered his wife and sons, and he maintains a relationship with his daughter despite the horrors she committed against her own family. She continues to claim that she tried escaping from Wilkinson and Wade that night, but that they forced her to sit in the car and wait, and her father believes her. 5. Christine Paolila and Christopher Lee Snyder. Christine Paolila had a rough life right from the get-go. Her father died when she was a toddler, and her mother was an addict. In addition to her struggles at home, she got picked on in school for having a condition called alopecia, which causes hair loss. She finally started to fit in better in high school when she befriended two popular girls, Tiffany Rowell and Rachel Coloritis, who helped her with her appearance. Things seem to have made a complete turnaround for Paolila by 2003, when she was voted the most irresistible student at her school. But that all changed later that year, when she met 21-year-old Christopher Lee Snyder and they began experimenting with drugs together. Their relationship was volatile from the beginning due to Paolila's jealousy issues, which caused her to go to Snyder's home and threaten to kill his family on one occasion. One day, the dysfunctional couple decided to steal drugs from Coloritis and Rowell, the very woman who'd befriended Paolila when she needed someone the most. They went to Rowell's home, where she and Coloritis were joined by Rowell's boyfriend, Marcus Priscilla, and his cousin Adelbert Sanchez. At some point, an argument broke out, and Snyder opened fire and shot all four of them multiple times. Coloritis initially survived and was trying to crawl to a phone when Paolila bludgeoned her in the head with a .38 caliber revolver. Afterward, Paolila went to her job at Walgreens as if nothing had happened. Nearly 3 years passed without any leads before detectives finally received a tip pointing them in Paolila's direction. By then, she and Snyder had broken up. She'd been to rehab, but had relapsed and was married to a fellow addict who she went into hiding with when she learned the police were looking for her. They spent 8 months at a motel while their addictions worsened. Around the time Paolila and Snyder were issued with warrants for capital murder, Snyder was found dead in a forest after police received a tip that he may have taken his own life. Paolila received a life sentence, but may see freedom again after she becomes eligible for parole in 2046 at the age of 60. 4. Sierra Hausseth and Aaron Guerrero. When 16-year-old Sierra Hausseth's father, Daniel Hausseth, forbade her from seeing her 18-year-old boyfriend, Aaron Guerrero, in 2020, she was determined to continue the relationship. The young pair decided that they wanted to be together at any cost, and that the only way to stop Daniel from getting in their way was to kill him. After not hearing from Daniel for some time in April of last year and becoming worried, his mother contacted the Las Vegas police, who asked his landlord to check on him. He was found stabbed and dismembered inside his home, and it was evident that someone had tried to burn the house down. Sierra had fled the area in her father's SUV, and family members were unable to reach her. An investigation soon found footage of Sierra and Aaron buying bleach, lighter, fluid, gloves, and a circular saw shortly before Daniel's murder. Just days after committing the horrific crime, the couple posted videos on social media bragging about how they'd killed and tried to dismember Sierra's dad, and saying that it was worth it. They also boasted about how they were intimate right after the murder, making it clear that they'd felt no remorse for what they'd done. Authorities caught up with the pair in Salt Lake City, Utah, and charged them both with murder and numerous other crimes. Prosecutors originally considered pursuing the death sentence, but struck a deal with the pair, who pleaded guilty to 9 counts including murder, in exchange for spending 22 years to life behind bars. 3. Ellen Fryer and Gavin Mcfarlane. When 15-year-old Ellen Fryer started dating 19-year-old Gavin Mcfarlane in 2017, her father, Aaron Fryer, was concerned about the couple's age gap. He paid the ultimate price for his disapproval when the pair entered his Medford, Oregon home with an accomplice, 22-year-old Russell Pierce Jones II, and bludgeoned him to death while he slept on his couch. The trio then loaded Aaron's body into the vehicle and drove to a dirt embankment where they buried his remains. All three suspects were soon charged with murder, robbery, tampering with evidence, and conspiracy to commit murder for a plot to kill Jones's father that they failed to follow through with. Ellen's attorneys argued that her father had subjected her to years of horrific abuse and claimed that her older boyfriend had manipulated her into going along with the murder. But the case never went to trial. Instead, the young woman pleaded guilty to conspiracy to commit murder and received a 25-year sentence. Mcfarlane was found guilty of homicide and received a life sentence with a minimum of 25 years, and Jones was sentenced to 15 years for his role in the brutal act. 2. Linda Berry and Joshua Mabane. 17-year-olds Linda Berry and Joshua Mabane met online in 2012 and had been dating for less than a week when they decided to run away together. But their plan got off to a rough start when they found themselves low on money while staying at a motel in Northeast Washington, D.C. To replenish their funds, the couple decided to rob a taxi driver. They asked 44-year-old Quaidar Muhammad to drive them to a nearby school. When they reached the destination, the teens robbed the cabbie at gunpoint and then shot him in the back of the head before fleeing the scene. The cabbie crashed into a tree and was found dead inside his burning town car. By the time news of the homicide got around, Berry and Mabane had already allegedly told 2 people that they had committed the crime. The concerned civilians reached out to police, who charged the couple with felony murder. Berry pleaded guilty to second-degree murder and testified against Mabane in exchange for a sentence of 12 to 24 years. Mabane also pleaded guilty to second-degree murder and received a 45-year sentence. 1. Eveline Geinzer and Damar Turelas. In late 2018, police were summoned to the Miami-Dade County home of 63-year-old Eveline Geinzer after a concerned relative called and said they hadn't heard from him in a while. They found Geinzer dead beneath some towels and bedding, and it was clear based on his wounds that someone had shot him from behind multiple times. Suspicion soon fell on Geinzer's 17-year-old daughter Eveline and her 18-year-old boyfriend Damar Turelas. At first, police accused Turelas of being the gunman and believed that the couple had conspired to kill him because he disapproved of their relationship. But the young man told investigators a much different story, claiming that Eveline was the shooter and that she hated her father even though he spoiled her and treated her well. As it turned out, she had attacked Geinzer with a baseball bat several months before his murder, but instead of having her arrested, he'd taken her to the hospital for a psychiatric evaluation. Turelas went on to say that he and Eveline's relatives had become concerned for Geinzer's safety prior to the murder. When he turned up dead, Eveline's mother, Jacqueline Avila, told Local 10 News that she didn't understand why her daughter chose a murderous path and blamed Turelas for influencing her into a deviant lifestyle. But it was later alleged that Avila had told Eveline that her father was receiving welfare checks and that she was entitled to the money because she was a minor. Turelas accused Avila of being a drug addict and claimed that she wanted Eveline to convince Geinzer to hand over the checks and then give her half. Eveline claimed that her father had abused her, but no evidence was found to back it up. And her lawyers questioned Turelas' version of events, pointing out how his story has changed several times. While the outcome of Eveline's case is unclear, Turelas pleaded guilty to accessory after the fact and received a 5-year sentence followed by 10 years of probation. Thanks for watching. If given a choice, would you rather go back in time and avoid ever getting into one of your younger and perhaps not so smart relationships? Or would you go back and relive an experience with an old flame to recapture that feeling of young love, even if it eventually came with heartbreak? Let us know in the comments below and don't forget to subscribe. See you next time. Bye.